Hey guys, what's good? Derek here from Bomb Socks with another day of Bomb Bites, where we feast upon the words of Christ one bite at a time. So today we're jumping into Ether chapter 2, and there's some cool lessons about faith, trust, and ever-present dangers of comfort zones. So I want to kick this off with a little story from church history that many of you are familiar with. So there's a guy named Reynolds Cahoon, member of the church in Kirtland, Ohio, and he and his wife had just had a baby. And so they're about to give the baby a name and a blessing. And Elder Cahoon sees Joseph Smith. And he's like, Joseph, will you come please bless and name my child? And Joseph's like, I got you. So Joseph gives this baby a name and a blessing. And the name he gives him is Mahanrai Moriankamer Cahoon. And at that point, if there's everybody like in a circle, I bet they're just looking at Joseph going, interesting, Mahanrai, what do we call this kid? Like, was there a nick like Mo? What do we call him, right? So when the blessing was done, Joseph looked at the group and he just said, this is the name of the brother of Jared. The Lord just showed it unto me. So until that moment, nobody had known the name of the brother of Jared. He was just simply known as the brother of Jared. And now we've got a picture of this guy right here, Mahanrai Moriankamer Cahoon, rocking a solid beard. This guy's great. So we've got the name of Mahanrai Moriankamer, which is great. We even have a pair of bomb socks called the Mahanrais with the brother of Jared right there. Now, Ether chapter 2 gives us a little bit into the story of Mahanrai Moriankamer. It actually talks about a place named Moriankamer, where the Jaredites camped out in tents for 4 years. For about the first 13 verses, they're in what's called the Valley of Nimrod, and they're in a place called Moriankamer. Now, they were on this journey, and they were following the Lord's guidance to the Promised Land. But in Moriankamer, we have a major problem. They get comfortable. This is 4 years of apparently living easy. The tents are up, they got food, they got shelter, and they're just doing great. It sounds to me that they had just kind of gone onto autopilot and they had forgotten that the Lord has bigger plans for them. Now, you get down to verses 14 and 15, and there's some cool principles taught here. Verse 14, it came to pass at the end of 4 years that the Lord came again to the brother of Jared, stood in a cloud, and talked with him. And for the space of 3 hours did the Lord talk with the brother of Jared, and chastened him because he remembered not to call upon the name of the Lord. So this was not a friendly chat. I imagine the love of God was absolutely there. And the Lord has wonderful ability to chasten you as he loves you. He is chastening him because he apparently did not remember to call upon God. Now, I personally do not think that the brother of Jared simply had just forgotten to pray for 4 years. As you and I both know, there is a difference between saying a prayer and praying. One of them is just kind of going through the motions. I think we all go through these phases where maybe our prayers are just not as meaningful. We're saying the words without much thought behind it. And it's so easy to get like that when life is good. I love the words of Brigham Young. Brigham Young said this, and I thought this was so cool. The worst fear that I have about members of the church is that they will get rich in this country, forget God and his people, wax fat, and kick themselves out of the church and go to hell. Why? Because they get comfy. And it sounds like this is what was going on with the Jaredites here in this land of Moriankamer. It becomes a good reminder to us that God is not this emergency repairman that we just call on when things are broken. You think about this. When was the last time you ever called a repairman just to say, hey, I just wanted to let you know that I am grateful that you are there and I'm grateful for all that you do. Do you need anything? Nope, I'm good. I just wanted to just acknowledge that you were there. Thanks for always being available. Yeah, no one does that, right? And sometimes we can treat prayer just like that. We slip into default mode. We slip into one of our pattern prayers that we normally do, forgetting to genuinely seek out God. Now you get into verse number 15. The brother of Jared repented of the evil which he had done and did call upon the name of the Lord for his brethren who were with him. And the Lord said unto him, I will forgive thee. That's such a cool statement. I will forgive thee and thy brethren of their sins, but thou shalt not sin anymore. It's like, look, don't do it again. For ye shall remember that my spirit will not always strive with man. Wherefore, if ye will sin until you are fully ripe, ye shall be cut off from the presence of the Lord. And these are my thoughts upon the land which I shall give you for your inheritance. For it shall be a land choice above all other lands. The Lord reminds them as they stay faithful in this promised land, they will be able to see the blessings of those promises. So when you think about this, when you're just sitting there comfortable on the beach, if you will, and the Lord's got an ocean of blessings ready for you, we always need to be mindful that God has something better in store for us. We can't just sit in our comfort zones. So rather than just letting complacency sink in, here's some thoughts and here's some questions that you could go over as a family, classroom setting, however you'd like to do this. In what ways is crying unto Heavenly Father different from simply saying a prayer? Think about really when prayer has really made a difference to you, where prayer has absolutely changed the night today. When have you felt Heavenly Father's compassion in answer to your prayers. That phrase is a lot in these chapters where it talks about as you cry unto the Lord, he will have compassion on you. Maybe a family member or a friend has felt your prayers for them, and that can be super powerful. What do you do, and what helps you make prayers more meaningful, and what would you suggest to others to add a little bit more power to their prayers? Some of you remember a couple years ago, there's videos with all of the First Presidency and the Quorum of the 12 and other church leaders where they talk about how they hear the voice of the Lord. And I love the way President Jeffrey R. Holland put it here. Go ahead and watch this.
There are many lessons that come out of the Sacred Grove experience, and not the least is the opposition that Joseph faced before the great revelatory moment of the Father and the Son. Joseph said that he exerted all his power, took everything that he had, and so there's a pretty good lesson in that for all of us about muscular prayer, urgent, determined prayer to fight through, whether it's the adversary's opposition or the cares of the day or the distractions of our mind. I think one of the lessons that I get from that is the reminder to me personally that I need to say the words. Prayer is an expression of the heart, and we can pray silently. We ought to pray silently. We ought to always have a prayer in our heart. But there is something about saying the words, and for me, saying them out loud. And so I'm reminded to not get by on the cheap, if you will, about prayer. We need to carve out time, and good time, high priority time, when we can say the words. Kneel where possible, be vocal, be out loud, and really have that communication. Individuals who might wait for their evening prayer until 11:30 and they're exhausted and the day has taken its toll, and we get a kind of a half-hearted prayer out before we tumble into bed. I'd say move that prayer up when we're alert and attentive and can think about it and be powerful. This ought to be high priority expression, and just managing our life a little better, I think, can lead to that kind of vocal communication with the Lord.
Well, as you all know, prayer is real work. It is, the Bible dictionary calls it, a form of work. It takes consistency. And so if we can keep ourselves from falling into default mode, and if we can stay intentional when we are calling upon God and crying unto God, that's when we start seeing more power out of our prayers. I love this chapter. And tomorrow we are talking about building barges, and you do not want to miss that. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks for subscribing, and thanks for sharing these messages. As always, we are so grateful that you do that. If you like what you see, click that like button. And of course, if you haven't already, you got to go check out our amazingly comfortable gospel themed socks at bombsocks.com. Godspeed. See you tomorrow. Take care. Bye-bye.